would expect him to feel a little defeated, a little gaunt, anything like that. But it wasn't that case. He appeared confident. He stood tall. But most importantly and most notably, when he walked inside the courtroom, the first thing that he looked at was his family.
In terms of presenting the electronic evidence or getting their witnesses lined up, it may be part and parcel of the defense's strategy to push this case to trial as quickly as possible.
Meanwhile, there are other reports that Diddy has stopped eating. This could be because he isn't enjoying the food, but it also could be because he's paranoid that someone is out to get him and may slip poison into his food.
Diddy and his legal team have been working tirelessly to keep the rapper out of jail, but their efforts have been largely unsuccessful so far. Despite his family supporting him and speaking on his behalf, Diddy's demeanor in court and jail seems to be sending a deliberate message. Shocking developments have emerged, so let's dive into why Diddy fears for his life in jail, what his rival Suge Knight has said about it, and why he's maintaining a calm attitude in court. Diddy's trial has become the center of public attention, raising questions about how he's handling the pressure. While he's been trying to project confidence, it's unlikely to hold up given the circumstances. Regardless of his lawyers' attempts to portray him as innocent, public opinion has largely condemned him already.
Jesse, it's pretty interesting because I think, we have seen many photos, videos of Sean Combs, aka Diddy, through the Associated Press, through Instagram. And so to see him kind of in person after being in jail for 3 weeks now was pretty interesting, to say the least. And I say that by being that you would expect him to feel a little defeated, a little gaunt, anything like that. But it wasn't that case. He appeared confident. He stood tall. But most importantly and most notably, when he walked inside the courtroom, the first thing that he looked at was his family. As soon as he saw his family, he just lit up. Another thing to note too is he wasn't shackled, but he was wearing a khaki prison-like jumpsuit when he appeared inside court, and his family appeared on their end very just happy to see him. Now, I will say, when I was inside the courtroom, I was a little bit towards the back right side of the gallery, and so for seeing Sean Combs, I had to look through a few heads and stuff like that. But again, he appeared just kind of confident walking inside that courtroom, and might have just been the look that his family.
Of course, that hasn't stopped the feds from doing their job. But why do people believe Diddy is essentially sending threats from court? And what are the unsettling messages being circulated? For one, his demeanor at the hearing raised eyebrows. He appeared confident and unapologetic, which many found troubling. Adding to the narrative, his family showed up in full support, seemingly reinforcing his image as a devoted family man.
You had Janice Combs, who sat by Justin. Then it was followed by Chance, the twins, Jesse and Delilah, Quincy, and then Christian Combs, aka King. And so again, once they all saw their father, they all smiled at him, waved at him. And even when we were all leaving the courthouse today, Diddy just blew kisses at his mother and his family members. They didn't say much of anything. I wasn't outside when they had first entered the courthouse, so I'm not sure if they said anything to the press. Previously, they had been very quiet whenever they had entered the courtroom, so I assume it'll be kind of like that as well.
Of course, no matter what Diddy does, the judges seem determined to keep him locked up at the Metropolitan Detention Center, denying his repeated requests for bail. However, there's much more to unpack. During the latest hearing, it was revealed that the feds are still actively working to extract a significant amount of information from the devices seized during the raids.
While a lot of us were kind of expecting there to be arguments about the bail or the bond, that really didn't happen. And the judge ordered that the defendant, Sean Combs, stay inside the MDNC, which we know the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York. And so as far as what we know now is that we know May 5th is going to be the date, tentatively, that the trial does begin. So we have a lot of stuff that we're expecting to see. So the data mainly still has to be extracted. Now, the government was kind of talking about just some of the devices are a little bit older, so the government in turn is kind of catching up to the technology there. But they say at the airport they seized 9 different devices. 7 of those have been extracted so far. At Miami, 36 different devices were seized. 29 were extracted. And in LA, 51 devices were seized. 24 have been extracted. They say the 8 terabytes of data, that information could come about in the next 2 weeks or so, and they're working on the production, another production of the subpoena returns. And so the defense pretty much didn't object to too much inside the courtroom today. Agnifilo also appeared kind of confident during his arguments. I know a lot of people were kind of expecting for the bail or bond argument to be happening, but that didn't happen, and it appeared that the defense kind of, I'm trying to find the right word here, but they were pretty much complying with all the prosecution's arguments and plan to kind of have everything all good and set to go by May. Now, by the time the end of the year is to happen, I forgot one big turn right here. They did mention that a potential superseding indictment could come.
Former federal prosecutor Eder weighed in on the ongoing proceedings, stating it's highly unlikely the case will proceed to trial by May 2025 due to the sheer volume of evidence still being reviewed. This delay could be exactly what the defense plans to capitalize on.
I'm joined once again by our general counsel here at Law and Crime, Elizabeth Vulai, but also I am joined by criminal defense attorney Nima Rahmani. Good to see you. Thanks so much. Happy to have you both here. Nima, I'll start with you. I mean, the idea of a May 2025 trial date, and we talked about it before on the show, that Sean Combs, if he thinks he's going to be locked up, obviously wants to go to trial as soon as possible. I get it. He's kind of putting the prosecution's feet to the fire. But you heard Elizabeth, terabytes of data, all this to go through, a production schedule. This really going to happen in May, this trial?
Probably not, but Diddy's lawyers may want to jam up the government if they think there's any chance they're not ready in terms of presenting the electronic evidence or getting their witnesses lined up. It may be part and parcel of the defense's strategy to push this case to trial as quickly as possible. Obviously, we know Combs is in custody, so there's really no point for him to wait. We know that the defense case is going to be limited. When Judge Subramanian asked for a time estimate today, the prosecution gave 3 weeks. The defense only gave 1 week, which means that they're going to base this case mostly on cross-examination.
Of course, that's not to say the government isn't prepared. Many experts have highlighted how the RICO charges allow the feds to bundle multiple crimes against Diddy into a single, comprehensive case.
The government is going to be kind of rushing a little bit. I understand they're still getting subpoenas are being responded to still. So they don't even have all their evidence together yet. And so demanding a speedy trial really is going to force the government to get their act together really fast and not have that additional time. But I think that the government was also smart in not overcomplicating this case by making it much bigger than it needed to be. For instance, what happened down in, y'all's neck of the woods in Atlanta with the YSL RICO trial that's going on. So, you've got a much simpler, indictment, 14 pages long, really one identifiable victim, but I think that there's probably others that are contained within it. So we'll see if that May date sticks. If there's superseding indictments, it's probably going to get continued, I would think, because there's just, that would automatically cause that to happen.
There's even speculation that the feds may bring in additional defendants to weaken Diddy's control over the case. By no longer being the sole defendant, others involved may start prioritizing their own interests, potentially turning against him.
Superseding indictments, I don't know if they'll necessarily be new charges against P. Diddy, maybe, or maybe more identifiable victims, but I think that you're also going to maybe potentially see some co-conspirators that are identified that played a significant role in this vast conspiracy that's taken place over the course of the last 30 years. So, with other defendants involved, that can also, Sean Combs will be in less control over when this trial goes and how it plays out.
Well, let's talk, though, about the fact the feds don't play. I mean, generally, they don't bring a case until they have their ducks in a row and the evidence ready to go. And so I have to believe that, yes, some of those things might cause delays, and it's a great defense team. But I also think the feds are well prepared with evidence on hand to proceed against him.
Oh, yeah. They took their time on this.
There's also the issue of Diddy's lawyers attempting to frame any wild parties as consensual. However, everything could shift if the 120 new allegations mentioned by attorney Tony Busby are officially filed. Since minors cannot legally consent, this would add another highly complex and damaging layer to the case.
What they probably want to do is push this case as quickly as possible, because we know under the Speedy Trial Act, unless they waive time or time is excluded, the government technically has to get this trial within 70 days.
So let me just follow up on that. If he's hit with a superseding indictment, right, and we don't know what those charges could be, We don't know if there could be multiple defendants. We don't know if there's respect to potentially minors. No, am I crazy to think that there's no way this trial is then going to happen in May?
It's unlikely, especially if there's a superseding indictment involving minors, because minors present a completely different set of circumstances. Because we know through his lawyers, Combs is arguing that the sexual activity happened, but it was consensual. Of course, for sex trafficking, you need one of those three elements: force, fraud, or coercion. Obviously, minors cannot consent to any sexual activity, so that would be a very different defense entirely. The defense would have to be that the activity it didn't happen at all and the individuals are lying. So I think that's going to be a potential game changer if we do get the minors wrapped up into a superseding indictment. And we know, at least if you believe the civil attorneys, there are 25 minor victims, one of which is as young as 9.
And those suits haven't been filed yet, but that's what Tony Busby, this Texas attorney, has indicated that we should expect to see.
Another shocking development is the rumor that Diddy may have been directly involved in leaking a tape of an A-lister, which is reportedly circulating in Hollywood. Some speculate this could be a calculated move by the rapper, a warning to others to stay silent or risk having their reputations destroyed.
We've got an attorney with us now. We have Ariel. She's joining us now. So who do you think that this star is, that we've got this unidentified male, and how could this be impacting the case?
I know who it is, which I'm not going to say out of respect, but how is it going to impact the case? I think the impact would be more so if that person was revealed. It would be, I think, shocking to everyone, kind of shocking, but not shocking at the same time. And I think it would just goes to show about the pattern of Mr. Combs' behavior against other people, like Mrs. Ventura and like the person that was in the video.
After all, the feds have already claimed to possess evidence of Diddy attempting to contact witnesses in order to threaten or coerce them. This is one of the key reasons why Diddy has been repeatedly denied bail.
It's more so about him being a flight risk than tampering. We have seen some evidence where he, specifically with one of the members of Dirty Money, as we all know, Don Richard had filed a lawsuit against Diddy. And then the other member of that Dirty Money group came out and essentially undermined her claim and said, oh, well, I didn't see anything. I don't know anything about this. And then we later found out that Diddy called her 54 times in a row. Oh. So I think that those situations lend to maybe some issues with tampering. And I do feel like there are victims who are scared to come forward, including my client. She was very nervous about if he was going to get bail this week. And once I told her, and then come after people, including her and some of the other individuals. And she was very relieved when he did not receive bail. So I think the issue is a combination of things, not only tampering, but more so of a flight risk.
Ariel Mitchell, the lawyer representing one of Diddy's accusers, believes the feds are determined not to let him walk free, especially given how he's being treated at the moment. Despite offering significant assets, including a $50 million mansion, Diddy still remains behind bars.
In a lot of situations, you know, again, in America, we have innocent until proven guilty, but then there's a certain amount of guilty and a certain amount of innocent. So I think we're leaning more towards the guilty side just because of what we've seen in the past with Mr. Combs' behavior, what we've seen in terms of the sheer amount of plaintiffs in civil court who have filed cases against him, as well as, like I said before, him being a flight risk and having the means and wherewithal to actually take flight and leave the country so he doesn't have to face his crimes in criminal court. So I think taking the totality of the circumstances, the court is being careful to make sure they don't do something that allows Mr. Combs to avoid justice.